Well, hey everyone, hope that you're doing well today. Thanks for joining me on Theology in Traffic, and I'm just trying to make my way across town right now. Well, last night we began our God Stories series back up on Wednesday evenings, and we've got 3 more of those through the month of July, 6 o'clock each Wednesday evening. I'd love for you to come and join us as we study through these parables of Jesus. Last night I had the joy of teaching on the parable of the talents, one story of Jesus that's very popular. A lot of us know that story, and if you're not familiar with it, I encourage you to go to Matthew chapter 25 and read that parable for yourself. But in this parable, we see that Jesus tells a story about a master, a wealthy man who had 3 servants, and the master's about to go on a journey. And so he entrusts some of his property, some of his money with these servants, and basically is entrusting them to make a return on it, to do something with this money as he goes on his journey. And he has gone for a long time, but then he returns. The first 2 servants, they come back to him and they say, "Master, look, we took your money and we have improved the money. We have made a profit off the money." And so the master is excited about this, and he says, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful with a little, I will make you in charge of much. Enter into the joy of your master." In other words, share in the returns of your master. But then the 3rd servant comes to him and he says, "Master, I know you. You are a hard man. You reap where you haven't sown, and you take where you haven't scattered seed. And so I was afraid, and so I hid your money. Here it is. It's yours. You got exactly what you gave me, but you have nothing more, nothing less." And so the master is angry with that servant. He says, "You wicked and lazy servant. You knew that I was a hard man, reaping where I haven't sown. If that's the case, you could have at least given my money to the banker, so that whenever I returned, I could have gathered the interest on that money. But because you are wicked and lazy, cast this one out into utter darkness." And so there's this picture of a master who gets angry with this lazy servant, and he basically casts him out of the house, casts him out of the relationship. And so I've always kind of read this second part of the passage where the master says, "You wicked servant, you knew that I was a hard man. You should have at least given my money to the bankers," to be where the master is saying, "Yeah, you knew that I was a hard man. What you were saying is true. So you should have at least given my stuff to the bankers." But when you come right into it, if you read the whole parable, you see that the master is not saying that at all, because in reality, if you look at the response of the master to the first 2 servants, he's not a hard man at all. He's not a man who takes what he didn't work for and take it for himself, because in fact he gave those resources to those first 2 servants. They worked with that money, they put their effort into that money, and then they brought the returns back to him. And what did he say? He said, "Well done, you've done a great job. I'm going to give you more of my resources, and I'm going to let you share in the returns." In other words, he says, look, you're going to be given more responsibility, and you're going to reap some of the rewards of your work. And so the master is anything but a hard man who takes what's not his, and who takes the profits from those people that he didn't do the work. And just like any manager of a business, he's going to reap the rewards of the property that's his. But he's obviously a good manager and a good master, because he's letting them share in the returns. And so whenever the master says, "Oh yeah, you say that I'm a hard man," then basically he's saying, look, if you thought that I was a hard man, then the least that you could have done was to invest my money so that I would get 0.001% interest. If you put it in a bank here in America, I could have at least earned that interest on the money, and there would be some return on what I gave you. But you've done nothing with it, so you obviously don't know me. You say you know me, but you obviously don't know me. There's no relationship here. I'm removing you from this place. And so what we really see here is that there was 2 servants who knew the master. They understood the character of the master. They understood what pleased the master, and so they did those very things. They showed that they had a relationship with the master, and so they knew who he was. This 3rd servant obviously did not have a relationship with the master. He had taken no time to get to know the master, to invest in that relationship, and so the master just removed him from his presence. It showed that servant had proximity to the master, but no personal relationship with the master. And Jesus says in John chapter 15, starting in verse 10, "If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love." And then he says, "I've told you these things so that my joy may be in you and your joy may be complete." In other words, Jesus is saying, look, if you keep my commands, then you are going to experience the love of my Father. You're going to experience my love. My love is going to be poured into your life. And if you keep my commands, my joy is going to be made complete in you. In other words, I'm going to put my joy in you, and you're going to share in the goodness of my joy. It's the exact same thing that Jesus is saying in John chapter 15 that he's saying in this parable. And so what we can see is that the master is a good master. And for those who obey the master, he shares his joy with them, and they participate in the goodness of the rewards that the master gives. And so that's how it is in our relationship with God. If we live in obedience to him, then we're proving that we love him, and he's going to in turn pour more of his love into our life. If we obey him, he's going to be joyful in that, and he's going to pour that joy into our life, and our joy is going to be complete. In other words, your joy is never going to be fully complete, and you're never going to be fully satisfied until you are obeying the Lord. I think John Piper said something to this effect: God is most satisfied in us when we are most satisfied in him. I could be butchering that quote, but he says something to that effect. And so throughout the scripture we see, especially the New Testament, that the truth of our relationship with Christ, the truth of a relationship of faith in Jesus Christ, is always followed by fruit. Jesus says you will know them by your fruit. Jesus said in John, you will prove to be my disciples that when you bear much fruit. James says that our works don't produce faith, but instead our faith produces works. And so I just want to encourage you to realize that God is not a hard master. Some people who say I would never serve a God who does this or that. I would never serve a God who would send people to hell or something like that. Look, God doesn't send people to hell. He gives them everything that they need to come to faith in him, to gives them the resources to live in obedience to him once they do believe in Jesus Christ. And so our God is a great master who is patient, who gives people opportunity for faith and opportunity to have a relationship. So I just want to encourage you to really analyze and think about how you picture God. Is the way that you picture God based really on your misperception of him, or maybe your misunderstanding of a situation in your life that he allows you to go through? If you looked at God in a different way and looked at what the scripture says about God, maybe your relationship with God could change. Well, hopefully this has been some insight into this parable as we realize that our God is a great master, a generous master, not a hard master. And hopefully this will help to improve your relationship with Christ as you continue to walk with him. If you have any other questions about things in the Bible or things in theology and you'd like for me to talk about that on a future video, be sure to drop that in the comments below. If you know me personally, you can also send an email, shoot me a text, or something like that. Thanks for joining me on Theology in Traffic. I'll see you very soon.